And as I do, say good morning to you. Thank you for being here. We are in our 12th month of this business mastermind, and I want to start by just saying it has been such an immense privilege to work with all of you and to move through this. I'm excited about next year. I'm also a little bit in a phase of reflecting on last year and just really grateful for those of you that have stayed and built relationships and really come together around how we do business better in the world of spirituality and the world of ministry. So today I want to talk about something that we all have kind of different opinions about, and that is the topic of social action. And social action for me is a way to define our service into community, both our service in the interior of our community and our service in the exterior of our community. And so it's different than social justice. Some of our churches are engaged really actively in social justice, and some of us are not. Some of us, are pretty strictly social action. We're not going to talk about social justice today, not because it isn't a worthy topic, because it is, and we should talk about it. But we're going to talk about social action in terms of how we add the strength of our community to the world we live in to make it a better place for people. I love this quote. I think I say that to you guys every month when we put up a quote, but I love this one. Everybody can be great because everybody can serve. For me, the foundation of why any community should do social service is because people find their greatness when they're in service, when they really recognize what they can do in the world. But there are lots of reasons to do to get involved in social action. The most obvious is because there are needs in our community. There are things that need to be done, and organizations working really hard to make a difference who simply need manpower. And that's what we have. We have warm bodies. Now, not all of those warm bodies will get involved, but depending upon how we present our case for getting involved, we will have some that will jump in because they can make a difference. It's also, in my opinion, important to be involved in social action because social action teaches better than anything we talk about. We can talk all day long about the concept of being God expressing. We can talk about that. We can reinforce it. We can back it up with scripture and teachings, Fillmorian concepts, all of that. But when people can really understand and apply being God expressing is when they're active in a way that shows that they can make a difference. So, which takes us to our third reason, because it empowers people who might otherwise feel helpless, apathetic, and without personal worth. And these are issues that we deal with all the time. When you find a person who has very highly victimized language, they're feeling helpless in the world. When you find a person who basically just doesn't care about anything, I'm so worn out and fed up and burned out on everything going on in the world, I don't even care about it anymore. I can't make any difference. And I have no value in the world. I'm not worth anything. I don't have a spouse. Maybe I'm retired and don't have a job anymore. I rarely see my family. Whatever those reasons are, or just a history of experience that has taught them that personal worth is an issue. When we involve people in social action, even at the lowest level of output, meaning what they have to do is minute, we have the opportunity to correct some of these beliefs. Because as soon as you get involved in something that helps someone, you are no longer helpless. And as soon as you see that there is something you can do, your story of apathy doesn't work anymore, nor does your story of self-worth. Because you truly, genuinely have helped someone and made a difference. And that can happen as at the moment that you're scooping out a bowl of soup at the soup kitchen and handing it to somebody who smiles back with sincere gratitude, in that moment, something can shift for people that we could talk about all day long and never shift. So in terms of our ministry, to bring people out into the world in service isn't just for the people we're in service to. In a very large and important way, it helps us to give our community the opportunity to use what it is we teach every day, to actually put it into use. And, you know, it's much easier to do that for someone else than it is for yourself. But once you use these things for other people, it's easier to turn them back around and take them in. So I'm going to welcome Robert in. I'm just going to give him a minute because he's coming in before we go any farther. Hey, Robert, welcome. We are just beginning, Robert, so I'm glad you're here. Our topic today is social justice, and we're just going into it. We were just talking about not social justice, social action, sorry. I just said we're not talking about social justice today. We're talking about social action. So what we're talking about, Robert, is why we get engaged in social action. And I'm just going to take a minute and go back through this because it's important to the rest of what we're doing. We're doing social action because there's a need. Clearly, there's a need in our community, whatever that area is. We're doing it because it teaches better than anything we say. We can tell people they're the hands and heart of God all day, but until they do it, it doesn't mean anything. And when they do it, it empowers them. It interrupts their patterns of helplessness, of apathy, and with questionable personal worth, because in a very minor action like handing a bowl of soup at a soup kitchen to someone who's actually really grateful and has a nice smile on their face and says thank you and really means it, in that moment, you suddenly know you are able to make a difference. You can do something in the world, and your being there made a difference that day, so you have worth. And that's the thing I think we miss in the story of social action, in the ministry of social action, is that as ministers, we think about our need to give into the community because we're a nonprofit organization and we should be doing something. But we as ministers sometimes miss the fact that social action is how we give our communities the opportunity to put into motion the things we teach the rest of the year. And there's a tremendous amount of community building that happens around this, especially as you move forward. Here are things I want to ask you that are important to where you are as leaders and your social action process. The first is, and this will seem counter to what I'm asking, do you have a benevolence fund for your own people? Because in order to turn our focus outward, we need to also know that we have taken care of the people under our own roof. Otherwise, let's say you're working for an organization that meets the needs of people who are living in a low income environment of some kind. They're having to go out away from your church to find something that they potentially could find through your spiritual center. So do you have a benevolence fund? And a benevolence fund is a fund that generally is assigned to the minister, because people are going to talk to the minister about what they need. You can do at my last church, we did a benevolence fundraiser twice a year, once around the holidays and once at the beginning of summer. And we just invited people to make a contribution into the benevolence fund. That is a fund that is created and available for you as a minister. If somebody hits your door and says, you know, I'm going to be $400 short on my rent this month. I've start my new job at the end of the month, but my payday doesn't happen. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be homeless if I can't pay my rent. Or, you know, I don't have insurance. My son fell and broke his arm, and I need to make a couple payments I can get on top of this, but I can't do it right away. I've got some immediate needs for medications and medical care for my kid. Okay, what do you need? Let's see what we can do. These are things that come up that you have to work with your board to have your board develop policies for. So if you have one, do you have policies for how you can help, for how much you can give, and for who decides who can be helped? So an example of that would be we at Unity in the Rockies did not do car repair. So if you have a flat tire, we will buy you a bus ticket so you can get where you need to go. We will help you get a bus ticket, but we will not repair vehicles. It was something that the community felt did not rank high enough in terms of, food, shelter, medical care, clothing, down to the vehicle. Now we're really not gonna get engaged in vehicles. We're gonna take care of whatever we can help with in the way of food, shelter, clothing, medical care. And we had a limit of $250. So I was approved as the minister to give $250 for help in any of those areas to any person in our community, as long as the funds existed in the benevolence fund. But I was only allowed to do it once a quarter with any one person. So you couldn't come in this week and come in next week too. It was a very well-directed fund. There were very clear parameters by the board. So if you've got a benevolence fund and you have already got good policies in place, then you're ready to look at where you can give outside of your building. But make sure you're taking care of your community first. Once you start looking at going out into the community to bring your community into social action, I want to suggest to you that you select an organization or two that you can really commit to, rather than taking a shotgun approach whenever somebody has an emergency need. Select an organization that your community hears about all the time. This is who we help. This is what we are committed to this. The organization we worked with here is called West Side Cares, and it served the west side of town where we are and provided care primarily to those who were homeless on this side of town. All kinds of services, from having mailboxes, an address and mailboxes people could use, to having a nurse on site a couple of days a week, to having taking in donations of clothes and having clothing available for people that needed. So when getting involved with them, they could call us and say, hey, we need X. We're short on socks. We have plenty of coats this year, but we do not have socks. Or in the summer, we really need donations of water, because our neighbors, that's how they refer to the folks that they serve, our neighbors are outside, it's hot, they need to have water, they need water. We need bottled water for them. So choosing an organization like that allowed us to meet lots of little needs along the way and to talk about what Westside Cares was doing whenever they had that need. But it's part of the narrative. It's part of who we are as a community, as this community that serves the homeless population. So one of the things that happens when it comes to volunteering is that because we see a shortage of volunteers in our building, we hesitate to bring volunteer opportunities back, because either we believe nobody's going to volunteer, or we believe if they volunteer for what needs to be done outside of the community, that they won't volunteer inside the community and will lose the volunteers that we already have, or the manpower that we so often need. And so I want to just seed in you an idea. And the idea is, when people go out and make a difference and feel empowered, which they are more likely to do when they're going out than when they're coming in. It gives you an opportunity to say, when they say, I just loved helping there. Yeah, volunteering is a really powerful thing. When you come together in a volunteering way with a group of people, you can accomplish great stuff. There are some wonderful things you could get involved in here in our community if you're interested. It gives you a place to have a conversation. People will volunteer for a one-time thing out there, or a once a quarter thing, or a once every 6 months thing before they volunteer inside, because inside feels self-serving. And by getting them out there, you have the opportunity to turn that story back around into something that gets them engaged, lets them understand what it feels like to volunteer, and invites them into a richer relationship. The other thing that happens in those exterior volunteer opportunities is that they collaborate and work with other members of your community, and they start to build relationships. And a lot of people are in our communities because they want to build relationships. That's how they showed up there. So when we get them involved in things, they start to know one another. And that satisfies a need for them, which once again builds in them the strength and invitation, the strength to do and invitation to get involved more deeply in the volunteer opportunities that you have. You want to work with your community to create a tradition of service in specific areas. And then your service becomes part of your story. So I shared with you a little bit about Westside Cares, which was our story. Our story was that we would, as a community, commit to working with people who were without a roof over their head. And we would continue to pay attention to what was happening in our city around that topic. So it became a place for us to watch what was happening in City Hall and see when we could speak there. It gave us a place to really look at how our city shelters work, to put together a bank of resources so that if someone showed up, we would be able to say, this is really where our community effort goes, and here are organizations that can help you. It was a very powerful thing to be engaged in one specific area. It also becomes part of the story that you share when you talk about your community and what your community does. And you are going to tell that story and tell that story and tell that story and tell that story again. So this becomes valuable to you, not only because of the good you're doing in the world, but because when it comes time to stand up on Sunday morning and say, we'd like you to make a contribution to this community, you have something to talk about that is not the roof repair or more toilet paper or the person you need to hire. You're able to talk about how the funds that you raise and the work that you do facilitate your being involved in the community in a greater way. And you can build a sense of who you are this way, a sense of identity that people can become connected to. In order to do that, you have to talk some with your community about what it is they care about. Who would, if you were choosing right now what organizations, and sometimes it's better to go with causes than organizations, to send out a survey and say, here are some of the kinds of causes we could get behind. Because in order to do all the good work you want to do, you might have to choose a couple of different organizations that work around the same cause. Or you might find out that one organization working on that cause is not good to work with and another one is really good to work with. But you can have a really big impact. So I'll tell you that in 2017 maybe, we were working with an organization that gives away Christmas trees. And the gentleman who runs that organization came to me while we were all sorting Christmas trees and ornaments and stuff, because it's a big giveaway that we did every year. So everybody was there. We had probably 30 people in the building, sorting through everything, getting ready for the next day when people would come and pick stuff up. And David came to me and said, there's this kid in Uganda who reached out for a Christmas tree, and I want to help him. But more importantly, he was telling me about his community in Gambela. And they're from his refugee camp is from Gambela, Ethiopia. And there was a big massacre, and they were sent out from the village because the men and boys were being killed. And so he had to leave his place at his city at 7 years old and travel with his uncles. And this young man ended up in a refugee camp. So he heard about this online. I have no idea how he found out about the Christmas trees, but he wanted to get one for someone in his camp. And he ended up in conversation about the massacre, and that it was on the 13th of December. And that every year people brought their food together and tried to figure out how to honor the people that were lost, and tried to put together a makeshift feast. So David said to me, what if we sent them enough money to feed their community on this day? And I said, great. How many people is that? He said 600. And I thought, whew, that's a lot of money. And I said, what will it cost to feed them? He said $1 a piece. Okay, for $600, we can do this for the entire camp. Let's do it. So I just took a basket around and asked everybody to make a donation. And we had our $600 by the end of the day. That started a relationship with that particular refugee camp that ended up having us raise money to build a community building that housed the school and housed an area for a maker's area where the women in the community were able to come together and sew clothing and create things that they could both sell and use in their community. When the building got rained out, we were able to step in again and rebuild the building. Neither time in building the building did it cost us more than $2,000 because it's mud, bricks, and a metal roof. And that's the most that Uganda would let them build. But here we were in this place of just helping with local Christmas trees, and ended up aligning with a refugee camp of 600 people in Africa, where we did everything from help them build buildings to buy washing powders, send the money for washing powders because malaria is an issue if you don't have those, and help their soccer team to have uniforms and tennis shoes and real soccer balls because they were making soccer balls out of tape and paper. And all of that happened because of one little opportunity to plug in. So we became a community committed to addressing homelessness here, and also working on a global scale. And it's a magnificent thing when your community recognizes it can have global impact. But it has to start in-house. You have to first serve your people, then serve your community, and then you can go outside of that. But it's a powerful story when you're able to talk to your community, when you wonder for yourselves, does it matter if we have this church? If we close the doors, everybody would just go to another place. Does this community really matter? Do we really make a difference? Yes, you can really make a difference. And when you build the story that you make a difference, people have increased value in what you do. It becomes more important to them. So they're not without, these kinds of projects are not without work. They take work. They sometimes take a development of we used to call it the Beyond the Walls team. You know, what are we doing beyond the walls? As a community, are we interior focused, or do we have a period of time when we focus on the world around us? You can call it whatever you want. You might need a team. And it makes a difference in the long-term value and worth of the individuals in your community and of their ability to value you. So this whole program to me feels really important. And I have seen how powerful it can be. And I want you to remember that other people are going to have an opportunity to view this video, I'd really like to know what you're involved in, whether you're involved or not, kind of where your community is in involvement, and what you see as the benefit of being out in the world in a socially active way. Anybody like to start?
I'm super excited about what we're doing. It's the community I'm in, Unity Church of Overland Park, has a long history of being very involved in the community. And then when we got to the point where they sold the building, and then they became sort of wanderers in the community, a lot of that we lost the organization of it. And then with COVID, there are still most places where you could actually go and volunteer are really limiting the number of people who can do that. So we've had a hard time finding a place beyond just doing backpack drives and food drives and all of that. But we have committed to some places where we can do that. But most recently, this opportunity has come available. It's with the Good Faith Network, which is a local chapter, and every city that has a chapter has its own name. So I'm not even sure who the parent organization is, but what they do is they gather congregations, interfaith, everything from, I mean, it doesn't have to be Christian, it can be anything, and they're really good about that. And they organize the faith communities to do research. First, they do house meetings and they talk about what are the problems in our communities that we are experiencing. Is it homelessness? Is it food? What are the problems? And people vote on what the key issues are after they listen to each other. So they have this whole process, and then they do the research to address the problem, and then they hand on a silver platter to the county commissioners a solution for a problem. And basically the whole process culminates in May. They go by the school year in a meeting where they gather all of the congregations and the county commissioners, and they appeal to them and say that our faith compels us to address this issue, and here's how we would like you to do it based on this research. And then it's a call for accountability. So part of the training is how to hold healthy tension, how to navigate difficult conversations with county commissioners. So we've come into this group and it's their second year. And so last year, their main focus was homelessness. And so it's not, here's how to manage homelessness better. It's here's how to end homelessness in this county. And so they had their big meeting, and now we've added 2 more initiatives, which is one to establish a mental health intake center, because there isn't one. So people either go to jail or they get shipped off to a nearby county. And then the other one is affordable housing. So addressing the problem, the lack of affordable housing, because we're one of the wealthiest counties in the nation. So our community, our church, folks have been really into this. And I wasn't sure how it would go because since I've been here, we haven't done much. And what they used to do was take food to, kitchens or shelters. And it was kind of that kind of thing, where this is more, it's a long-term commitment, and it's not the same activity every time you go. And you make a choice of how you're going. You could be a team lead that would comprise of our own members and also maybe people from other churches, or you can do research, or you can make phone calls. So you have to decide how you're going to be involved. There's no assignment. But what's exciting to me is the initiatives and the way the initiatives are handled. And you don't have to be in a certain physical condition in order to participate. So people who are sick at home can pick up the phone, or they can do research and they can contribute in whatever way. So that's what we're doing right now.
That's awesome. What a great program. I would love to know if you're able to find out if there's a parent, like
there is. I'll see if I can find it here.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you could share even the organization you work with, and we can, because if there was something in Fort Worth like that, I would love to connect.
Their chapter, the woman who is the executive director, so they have a small staff, and there's a membership. So, and based on the size of your church, so our membership was like $1,200, I think, maybe $1,400 based on the size of our church for the year, and they just ask you to pay it within the year. but the executive director of our chapter was involved in a nearby county, and what they did was there was a ballot to expand the jail. So they had just had a big jail built. 2 years later, they put a measure to expand the jail. And this group got together and they said, no, what we need is a mental health intake center. We don't need a bigger jail. We don't have the problem is that people who are filling up the jail cells are actually needing mental health care. And they organized the community, shot down the measure, and they approved to have, so they've seen like actual real success with it. So it was really exciting to me. I'm looking at it. So the Good Faith Network is the group that we're working with, the chapter that we're working with. And I will look up, we can go ahead and continue, and I'll look up who they're associated with.
That's wonderful work.
Yeah.
Wonderful work. Sounds like a great and again, when you align with an organization, you get structure and ways to participate, and you get tradition, so even when you talk about doing backpacks, doing Thanksgiving dinners, doing Christmas dinners, doing a drive for food during the period of spring break when kids don't get school lunches, if you can find the right organization to align with, you can have these traditional things that the community gets used to participating in. And after a couple of years, they're asking you, what do we have to do for the Thanksgiving baskets this year? Are we putting in, what are we bringing? And so it's really important to look at the organizations and see what their history is, and really important to see, kind of what is their ongoing programming that you can plug into. Jean-Marie, what are you guys up to? Are you doing anything right now? I know you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah, right now, I'm involved in the Circle of Clergy, which is probably the largest interfaith clergy organization at this point in the Fort Worth area. And in connection with the Aaron Dean trial, who has gotten national attention to a police officer who shot a Black woman in her own home 3 years ago. That trial is going on right now, and we produced a video that I think is very compelling, that to really address the need for, to remind people that everyone has the right to protest, but to do so peacefully, and that we are just, we're here as faith communities to support the community, in prayer and for all the anger that may come up, especially with the Black community and all that. So that organization is very racial justice focused, and we actually just met with the county judge and commissioner about the the increased or the high number of prison deaths in Tarrant County. Specific to one that was pepper sprayed and then died in prison because he had a property damage of $750, and things like that. So, but right now I'm the only one who's really involved in that. So there's not yet a connection into the community, but I'm planning to do that. I'm planning to do either a racial justice committee that then feeds or team that kind of like works in support of that Circle of Clergy. So that's something that's going on. Food pantry is something that we took on through the community engagement team, which has been initially it was 3 months, then we extended to 6 months. Now we've been doing it for a whole year or more. And that's a really good thing. And then, but that's really it for us. So I'm doing most of the work in terms of reaching out into the community, except for the food pantry thing, and haven't found a way of linking it into the community. In other words, asking people if, I'm putting this on myself. I have yet to create opportunities for people to step into and then support me with all that work, because it's not everything is mine to do.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't think we would have been involved in as many things as we were able to do in my past assignment if it wasn't for the board taking it on, that the board really got an understanding that this is the ministry part of it, is having your minister on board, really understanding when your community, the ministry part of it is that we make a difference in people's sense of themselves. It empowers our people. It helps them to see that they have worth. It helps them to do away with apathy and refocus, even to refocus anger, because so much anger that in our society right now comes from the sense that we can't make a difference. There's nothing, I'm just one person, I can't make a difference. You can make a difference in one other person's life. But we're looking for opportunities to engage with other people so that they actually, it's great that we collect coats, collect gloves and mittens, collect celery for the baskets for Thanksgiving or Christmas, whatever that is. That's all great. It's an entirely different thing when people actually get to engage with other people. It not only helps our folks to understand really, truly how powerful they are, it helps them to see how blessed their lives are. And it helps them to see, it helps to break down ideas that we have about the people that we're in service to. Because people become people instead of statistics and labels. So when we're able to work together, it's a really valuable thing. We were very particular about being able to meet with the mothers that we gave Christmas. We now do Christmas gift cards. The big campaign they're doing right now is Christmas gift cards because of the whole COVID thing. Gift cards are really easy. They're not stuffed animals or anything that you have to worry about, or used toys or anything like that. So one of the things that the network of churches working with Westside Cares was able to say is we want to meet the moms. We want to hand these to the moms. We want to hug the moms. We want to tell them that there are communities out here that really care about them. We want it to be more than, here's your piece of paper, or here's your gift certificate, or here's whatever. So the organization now has it set up so that there is a day for taking these out. And families are assigned to each church, and the church gets to actually go and meet with the mom or the dad or both and provide what they're providing for the family. And the people who go and deliver these things, or they've done the same prior to COVID, they did the same with baskets, with like the Thanksgiving basket. The people that went to the home or went and met with the person who was receiving for the family, those people are changed forever. It is a tremendous, tremendous experience, and a challenging one that you kind of have to talk them through. Don't stay for a long time. Don't ask a lot of questions. Say, we're so happy we can meet you. We hope you have a lovely holiday season, because you have to put yourself on the other side, on the receiving side. It's a very humbling moment for those people that are receiving. And you have to help your people to be prepared for that, to be prepared for the fact that there might be tears, that people don't quite know what to say, that sometimes they don't know what to say at all. And it's a very kind of cold and sharp moment because they don't want to be in the situation where they have to receive. But it's life-changing. And this, again, is the reason that I am such a strong proponent of communities finding ways to get your people involved, because it changes them in ways that you could talk about all day long, and they would never feel in the same way. Robert, what are you guys up to?
Well, a couple of months ago, you brought this subject up, that if we were to tithe back into the community, it would be best to, rather than a shotgun, which we had been doing, we took a certain percentage, we took 10% right off the top every month, and then apportioned it out back to the region and anyway, and local charities. And what came up was the state of Texas is changing its foster care program. Evidently, the state wants to get out of the business and turn it over to more of the private nonprofit. And we didn't know that was going on. And within about 2 or 3 blocks of where we rent place, there is an organization called Lone Star Social Services, and they are a foster care and adoption agency dealing with people, foster families and children within a 5-county area around Austin. And they were just starting. A guy started this thing who was from foster care. He grew up in foster care and became a doctor. So he's very, very appreciative for his time in foster care and the issues he had to deal with. So he was just started, not just starting, but he was about 2 or 3 years old in this process. And he has been funding it out of his practice. So he started 2 or 3 businesses that are earning money to keep this local agency going. So we have come in all of a sudden, and it's only about 2 or 3 months old at this point. So we are learning to establish. I just got some interesting ideas in the conversation here. One of their issues is number one, they do want the families protected. We are not allowed to go out and work with the family because of anonymity issues, but we can be there. One of the biggest issues is their counselors. They're hiring counselors. Counselors have to work with kids coming from broken families, et cetera, and then how do you match them with a family that has agreed to be a foster care? They have to be trained, and then the match has to be made. So there's a lot of counseling, a lot of work in those areas. And we just happen to be a community full of love. So it's a very, very interesting combination. We are learning how to integrate. So far, we did a Halloween event for them, and everybody donated candy, and then we went down, and the agency is getting better. They had fire trucks and everybody and the families came in with their kids dressed in Halloween costumes, and we were there to just support that. Then we had volunteers put together turkey dinner in boxes that they gave to the families, but it brought togetherness. Now we're just getting started, and it's kind of like, what else can we do? They had wanted us to do Santa Claus and do a Santa Claus environment at their office for the families to come in and take pictures. That kind of fell through because they're still working on how do we deal with families and not let everybody know who they are. So there's a lot of this new stuff going on. But I'm also realizing we can actually be there to support these counselors, because they, and I don't, the idea just came through, and this is all a brand new thing, but it's much better than, sending it. We would send, we rotated different charities 12 months a year, and we would send a different check to every, but now we're focused on one group. And just the idea of me thinking, how can we be better service to them? It's worked out well. And I thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, I'm so glad. It was helpful. Again, I think we forget to come back and talk about it the second time and the third time and the fourth time.
Yes.
And to be able to say to your community, look, we're thrilled you're here. We're here in service to you. And because we are together, we're stronger, and we're able to make a difference beyond our walls out into the world. Here are just some of the things we've done in the last year. To be able to create, it's not just creating, like I hate spin doctoring. Yeah, tell the story because it's going to get more people in. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you being able to look at your community from the platform and recognize that not only are you leading a community that maybe has its own stuff going on and needs you to be there for it, but you're leading a community that has found a way to give back into the world, and that the existence of your community is important, that you can't just have your, close your doors and have your folks go to another spiritual community, because the work that you do in the world won't be available if you guys are not available. And that changes things for you as the minister, changes things for your board members, it changes things for your elders and community leaders, and it changes the experience that people have, they become proud of being part of something that is doing something good in the world. And, there are always people in the community who are unable to participate because of mental issues, because of, physical issues. There are always things that stop people from communicating. You can reinforce anything you're doing with, this is what we're doing. And if you can't be there or you can't contribute right now, please pray for these people we are in service for. We're going to pray for these people at 7:00 on Saturday nights. You can help. Choose to be part of this. We can always add prayer as the way that nobody gets left out of the process. So then when you come back and you say, thank you, we fed 50 families Thanksgiving dinner. And I feel very confident that the hearts of all of those families were touched by the people in this community who were praying for them. So you always want to make sure that you wrap back into the value of that contribution to what you're doing. Because it is a contribution. It's a contribution of energy and time and commitment. And these things are really, really powerful in building a sense of community and a sense of purpose. And in our teaching, when we're trying to get people beyond victim mentality, to understand that they are God expressing, that they are the hands and heart and moving spirit of the Holy, making the world, creating the world, there is no better way to teach them that they are the co-creators of the world than to get them co-creating a better world. So it's powerful, powerful stuff. Jackie, tell us, you posted a couple things for us. Tell us about what you put in the chat box.
DART is the main organization that the Good Faith Network is an affiliate of. And I looked at the states, and Colorado and Texas are not on there, but there are 9 states. So there's a link to the website for that. And one thing I appreciate, and you touched on it just a little bit, is that they are hyper aware of not being demanding of the clergy. So with the organization itself, the Good Faith Network, their staff comes in and they train your congregations. They of course encourage clergy involvement, and they have a list of all of their meetings, and they put an asterisk by the ones that they really want the clergy at and the other ones that the clergy don't have to come to. So they're really mindful about not burdening our plates as well. But then the other thing I added was a reverse Advent calendar, which we got from our neighboring Unitarian church. And they actually house the only homeless shelter for adults in our county. And they also have a food pantry. And we have adopted their food pantry since I came on. That was one of the first things I did. So we consistently support them in a variety of ways. And because there's a supply chain issue, they created this reverse Advent calendar. So instead of receiving a chocolate every day of Advent, you give a specific food item. And so you can just gather it all up in your home and then take it all down there together. But we've invited our congregation into doing it. And they're located 2 blocks away from our church, or where we meet anyway. So it's a really good match for us. And again, it nearly everyone can participate, in some way for it. So I really look for those opportunities that the largest number of people can contribute in some way. But I want to share that with you.
Yeah, thank you. And I would also suggest DART is direct action and research training. I would suggest, even though some of you are in Texas and you may be in states that don't have it, reach out to them and see if they're anywhere close to having it, because they may be, and reach out and find out, are you aware of other organizations that work like this? Because most organizations that are similar are exchanging ideas, and they might know of someone or some project similar to what they're doing that, maybe they're not in Texas because there's some great other organization doing this work in Texas. So it's really worth reaching out. When you are dealing with the people who say churches should pay taxes, it's because they don't understand what churches give.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. Why aren't churches paying taxes? Because churches give all the time. church organizations are running most of the AA, housing most of the AA programs in the country. Church organizations are doing so much. And so again, sometimes we have those people in our own communities and we have the opportunity to express, we're able to do things in the community that stop us from having to have tax dollars committed or from having to expand our government or whatever that is to cover those areas, because communities are taking this on. One of the things that we worked on doing a couple of years ago here in Colorado Springs, and this was led by another community, by another spiritual, another denomination, was there is a bus that runs from our city to the closest prison. And because prisons are populated largely with marginalized communities, with people from marginalized communities, a lot of times they don't have the money to jump in a car and just drive out and visit. So there's a bus that runs from here that brings people out for visitation. Somebody has to pay for the gas. The church is donating the bus, but somebody has to pay for the gas for that. And so our communities, our spiritual communities, gathered together to raise enough money to fund the bus for the next year. So there are also opportunities to get involved in larger things. When you're talking about interfaith, Jean-Marie, that's what made me think about that is, you know, there are projects that we can do together with people of other faiths that really make a difference for communities, for various segments of our population. And it's really worth talking in your interfaith groups as well to find out what people are up to and find out if they need help and how you can get involved. And sometimes there are, you know, kind of preset programs that you can step your community right into because someone else has been doing it for a while. They just need more hands. They need more people involved. But it's definitely a different thing to consider it part of your ministry to your people. To really consider that we make a difference for our people when we give them reasons, opportunities, and encouragement to go out and get involved. And for that reason, so often I find myself saying thank you to organizations who want to thank me. Now, thank you, because you don't know it, but you are helping these people in a powerful way because they're no longer feeling like they can't do anything. And that is so valuable. The other thing I would encourage you to do as you work with your organizations and you find places to plug in is get these folks to come into your community. Jackie was speaking about them coming in and doing some training, but even once or twice a year to come in and talk about the good work they're doing and give them the opportunity to actually thank your community in person. Because it's a different thing when you say, thank you for doing this, you're making a difference, or when they walk in and tell the really deep soul stories of the organization that they are running. So be sure you get them involved and get them to meet the people as well. I love this conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to take a few minutes. I'm going to end this recording and say thank you to those of you that are watching. And we're going to take a few minutes to talk about what's coming up next. So thanks for being here.